Hello and welcome back to the first of the semi-finals of the Pokemon Liverpool Regionals in 2023. My name is Jamie Boyt. I'm joined once again by Lou at Josh Cromie, and we are getting right into the very last few games of this tournament, into the semi-finals. Only 4 players remaining, 4 fantastic players, 2 coming up very shortly.
Yes, we are now in the top 4 stage of the competition. There are only 4 players ready to battle it out for that title of champion at the Liverpool Regional Championships. I mean, so far we have seen some incredible matches and a really nice variety of Pokemon. But the next match that we have up for you, we'll have a little look at the bracket first of all and then reveal all. But I am definitely very excited for this next match.
Yeah, absolutely. The first one we're going to be featuring is going to be Francesco Pardini versus Alex Otto. We have already featured both of them previously on the stream, so we have had a little look at their teams. And Francesco with that very interesting, seeming to be residual damage kind of team. Lots of different ways of doing slight bits of damage over time. Really effective. And then there's Alex Otto with his hard Trick Room team that has been so effective so far. And then we have just featured Luca Paz being able to win his quarterfinal match. And then we'll be facing Faiz Ashfaq very shortly.
Yes, really looking forward to that. And this is the thing, when you get down into this top 4 stage of the competition, you know, you've got to bear in mind everything that these players went through yesterday, 9 grueling rounds of Swiss. And now they're coming through into these top cut games. They're battling it out. And it's, you know, it's an elimination point now. You know, you don't have those Swiss rounds trying to go X and 1, or in some cases, obviously, X and 2, you still manage to get in. It's a difficult situation because every single win is critical at this point. You know, if you get a loss, you're out of the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've already earned a very good amount of championship points, also a very good amount of prizes at the moment. They've all got $1,000, so they're trying to play for even more, the $2,000 for the second and $3,000 for first place as well. So lots of things on the line here. Of course, all with the championship title on the line as well. So yeah, going to be a fantastic semi-final that we're going to be having coming up here.
Yeah, it's going to shake up the leaderboards for sure, of which, you know, I will be quite sad about. But, you know, I haven't said it enough. I've done well so far on championship points, and I will now be decrowned. But there is a reason for that. There's a reason I like to commentate, because I get to see these fantastic matches from really high caliber players. Francesco Pardini on your left-hand side, they're running one of my favorite Pokemon, that Gastrodon, and running it with the Steel Terra type. I didn't think the Gastrodon could get even more incredible, but then it is like a Viking emerging from the seas, having that axe ready to be defensive and powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was very crucial in the end game of that game 3 for Francesco back in the top 32, because he had taken care of all the threats that could threaten the Gastrodon. He was just left with facing 2 Hurricane Pokemon that can't do anything to the Steel type on the Gastrodon. So yeah, really nice. And we saw Alex Otto yesterday in the quickest game that we featured on the stream. It was over in about 10 minutes. But that is exactly what these kind of hard Trick Room teams can do. You try and set up Trick Room, you try and win in that one round of Trick Room. So try and win within the 4 turns, and this team can absolutely do it because it has some very heavy hitters.
Well, I'm delighted that we actually get to feature this, because we were talking a little bit yesterday, Jamie, towards the end of the day, about how Trick Room kind of has fallen off the meta a little bit. So it's amazing to see it here in top 4 being piloted so well by Alex. You know, some Pokemon that I wouldn't have expected to see. Obviously, in Trick Room, our minds straight away jump to Torkoal. Not only is it slow, not only is it bulky defensively, but it can also pack a punch using its drought ability to bring the sun and boost up its fire-type moves. The one key Pokemon I want to talk about, though, is that Hatterene.
Yeah, absolutely. We only really see Hatterene on hard Trick Room teams, because it is a Trick Room setter itself. It hits very hard in the Trick Room, but it is quite frail.
Yes.
It is definitely not on the levels of bulk of other Trick Room setters that usually like to go for it. So you do want to be going for the hard Trick Room team, because Hatterene is one of the hardest hits you can get, one of the slowest as well. Can't be taunted because of the Magic Bounce, can't be spoiled because of the Magic Bounce. So really nice for the hard Trick Room. So yeah, seeing it come out here paired with its classic partner of Indeedee, even though itself lost Expanding Force, there is also the Expanding Force on the Armory, so that somewhat makes up for it.
I mean, it may have lost Expanding Force, but it's inadvertently gained Trick Room on that Indeedee, so, you know, it can be really helpful. Taking a deeper look, though, back at Francesco's team, the one thing I love about this is the kind of residual damage, and we talked a little bit about this earlier today. You know, Garganacl going for that Salt Cure, that will obviously do 1/8 of damage to opponents unless you are Water and Steel type, and then it does a colossal 1/4 of damage each turn. You've got things like the Fire Spin on that Dragonite, not only trapping opponents in, but giving that residual chip damage on it as well. And then again, Glimmora can go for its Toxic Debris, scatter the ground with those Toxic Spikes, and potentially you can get poison residual damage as well. So there's so many different ways that Francesco can find a way to just chip through teams, sit on the field, stay healthy, with, you know, a lot of bulk that's built into this team as well, and just see their opponents get KO after KO.
Yeah, that team is supposed to win very slowly.
Yes.
This team is supposed to win very fast. So it is going to be very, very crucial to which strategy comes out on top. The slower team has the bulk to be able to survive through the Trick Room. But the Trick Room still hits very, very hard. And the fact that the other team from Francesco is going to be hitting not that hard in return, it's going to win over a few turns. This one is trying to win just immediately. Torkoal spamming Eruptions, Armarouge spamming Expanding Force, and just going for massive attacks to try and get one-hit KOs. Will it be able to get through the bulk on Francesco's team? Because he has a lot of very, very bulky Pokemon, a couple that are going to be able to recover as well, so may be able to weather the storm of this hard Trick Room.
Yes, and I mean, Jamie, you being a 3-time regional champion yourself, having a look at this, Francesco needs to try and avoid Trick Room going up. What utility does he have on his team that might be able to accomplish that? Well,
you can go for something like the banded Dragapult. That would likely be able to KO the Indeedee if it were to go for redirection. It's also immune to the final Gambit because it is a Ghost type, unless you do go for that Terra and turn into a Dragon type. But that is one of the probably the few ways that Francesco does have to just knock out the Indeedee if Alex was going for the strategy of follow me and Trick Room. So that would be a potential way of stopping that. Otherwise, I think it may be better for Francesco just to accept Trick Room is going up. My team is very bulky. I may not just be knocked out by the Torkoal Eruptions. Garganacl, Gastron, they can take it on. The Hatterines, it can still go for some very strong attacks, but again, like Gastron, like Garganacl, and even the Dragonite with the multi-scale, that's going to reduce the amount of damage that the hard Trick Room can do, so it may be quite hard to break through this team.
Yeah, and Alex is actually running triple Trick Room on Indeedee, the Hatterene, and the Armarouge, and jumping out of the blocks is going to be Armarouge and Indeedee, a classic combination that has been forged in Series 1 against that Dragapult and the Glimmora on Francesco's side.
Yeah, absolutely. So it seems like we are going with the Dragapult for Francesco's, trying to do as much damage as possible. You can definitely go for a Dragon Darts. That may not be enough into the Indeedee. If you do go for an Outrage instead, which we've seen be successful in the previous games on this stream, that may be enough to be able to knock out the Indeedee in one shot. And if it is, that frees up the Glimmora to be able to go for a Power Gem into the Armarouge. Probably not enough for a knockout, but will do significant damage. And with a Terra coming out already, it seems like that Dragapult does want to be going for its Dragon Terra. It's going to be doing the most amount of damage possible. If it locks into Outrage, that might be a KO on the Indeedee. If it's Dragon Darts, it'll be quite close.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Of course, both of these Pokemon on Alex's side can click that Trick Room button, but not for Indeedee. Is going to go for that redirection, follow me, drawing in all of those attacks, so possibly their partner Pokemon in the Armarouge can set that Trick Room up instead. Outrage is the option from this Dragapult, and it gets the one-hit KO on that opposing Indeedee. Now, this is the thing. All eyes on Glimmora. Can it get the KO against this opposing Armarouge and try and stop it for going for the Trick Room?
Yeah, it's going to be very strong, but Armarouge is still a very bulky Pokemon, is able to survive that Power Gem. Therefore, the Trick Room is now set up. So you have sacrificed the Terra on your Dragapult. That was probably necessary to be able to KO the Indeedee, but you didn't quite get the Armarouge. It can still go for Expanding Forces. The nice thing about Armarouge going for Expanding Forces as opposed to the Torkoal that could go for Eruptions, doesn't care how much HP you have. You can be in the red and you can still knock out all the Pokemon with Expanding Forces. And the Dragapult, it can't protect. We know it's locked into Outrage now. It can't even switch because it's locked into Outrage. So you get to go just for a Twisted Spoon boosted Expanding Force. That might be enough to KO the Dragapult because it's not the bulkiest of Pokemon at all. Even we were saying how much bulk Francesco had, Dragapult's one of the frailer ones. It's supposed to be the heavy hitter, especially with the Hatterene joining the field as well. You can just go for Expanding Force with the Armarouge. That probably KOs the Dragapult, breaks the Focus Sash on the Glimmora. Hatterene follows up with a Psychic KO. So yeah, really, really nice position for Alex here. Not too concerned with all that damage on the Armarouge, just the fact that it was able to survive the Power Gem was the crucial part, because then you were able to set that Trick Room.
Yes, Dragapult certainly in a precarious situation here. Glimora's going to go for the Protect with the Spiky Shield, as Hatterene does just click that Dazzling Gleam. This is going to be dealing a huge chunk of damage to that opposing Dragapult that we know is actually unable to protect due to its choice item here, and it is going to go down in one shot. No surprises there. I think we've seen time and time again Hatterene take down many Dragon types.
Yeah, absolutely. You can just go for Dazzling Gleam, you can go for Expanding Force. That would have been a double KO, and nothing that Francesco could do about it. All he can do is try to stall out these turns of Trick Room with the Spiky Shield on the Glimmora. If you were switching in a Pokemon, that's probably not going to like the Expanding Force or the Dazzling Gleam either. So even with the bulky Pokemon back, like this Garganacl that is joining the field, and that can go for the Wide Guards as well. So that's going to be maybe making Alex think twice about going for Dazzling Gleam and going for Expanding Force. But that's one of the nice things about the way that Alex has built his Armarouge. He's got Expanding Force, but he also has Psychic. So you can avoid those Wide Guards that could be coming out and just go for the single target attacks. You've got double Psychic available on the Hatterene and the Armarouge with no resistances in sight. The Glimmora does need to be doubled up though. So if you do double up into the Glimmora, and it has just gone for Spiky Shield, so that would be a very safe double up unless there was a double Spiky Shield attempt then the Garganacl would just be ignored. But you can kind of go for that because this Garganacl doesn't really do too much damage. Although the Armarouge is very low itself, it would be in range of just the regular Salt Cure KO without even any of the residual damage. But then that would give the switch into the Torkoal in the back. So Garganacl is actually still reasonably positioned here.
Yes, well, there's the Dazzling Gleam, not fearing any potential Wide Guard coming out from the Garganacl. Hatterene obviously using its Life Orb to take a little bit of recoil, and it's going to have to take a Salt Cure from this opposing Garganacl as well. So it does a little bit of chip damage, and of course will now chip away at that Hatterene as the Trick Room turns continue. We are going to see, however, the Armarouge take down the Glimmora, and you were quite right, Jamie. You needed to double up into it thanks to the Focus Sash. The item choice, again, can be so disruptive in many ways. If potentially we'd seen the Glimmora with the choice specs that we've seen be quite popular back over in San Diego, then that would have been able to get the KO previously on the Armarouge, and it would have been a very different game. So the Focus Sash, again, yes, it was a bit unfortunate not having choice specs necessarily earlier, but the Focus Sash forcing that double in, allowing the Garganacl to be able to go for the move into the Hatterene.
Yeah, absolutely. It was quite brave of going for the Dazzling Gleam in the face of potential Wide Guard as well. Definitely covering for it by the fact that Alex went for Psychic instead of Expanding Force. If he clicked Expanding Force there, no Wide Guard was used on that Garganacl, so that would have actually been way more effective than the Psychic would have been. But if Francesco had clicked that Wide Guard button, then Glimmora would have survived the turn thanks to the Focus Sash, would have been able to KO the Hatterene with a Sludge Bomb, and then the Armarouge would be so low as well. But you've still got the Dragonite, still got Monster Scale intact because it has just arrived on the field, so still going to be incredibly bulky, should be able to survive a Dazzling Gleam pretty comfortably, survive a Psychic very comfortably as well, and you still have Wide Guard active. You can still click the Wide Guard whenever you want with the Garganacl, and that would keep the Dragonite safe from the Dazzling Gleam, so that is why Alex is forced to go for a Psychic here.
Yep, going straight for the Psycho into the Dragonite. Hatterene obviously taking a little bit of recoil here, as Garganacl is going to go for the Salt Cure down into the opposing Armarouge here, enough to be able to get the KO against it and start whittling away at some of these Trick Room turns. But Hatterene still in such a dominant position here.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's the Fire Spin. So now we're going to see the combination of the Fire Spin and the Salt Cure adding up, especially with the Hatterene that's carrying the Life Orb. That's going to be chipping itself every time it attacks as well. The fact that the Garganacl undersped the Armarouge was very, very important there, because if the Armarouge was able to attack, it would have been able to get off potential Expanding Force or a Psychic, and that might have KO'd the Dragonite. But look at all that chip damage to the Hatterene. It's going to be KO'd at the end of this turn for sure, because you can't switch out anymore. You've lost 2 Pokemon on Alex's side of the field, so Hatterene, this is his last turn on the field. Garganacl does have access to its Protect. It didn't go for a Wide Guard, so it definitely can just go for a Protect on this final turn. And then the Torkoal, it may struggle to take down this Garganacl as well. So it does have access to Earth Power, but that's not making use of the Sun, and Torkoal's not got the greatest special attack. It does really need to make use of those Sun-boosted fire moves. So yeah, it's a really, really nice position for Francesco here. It seems like he is successfully being able to stall out these Trick Room turns.
It's really nice to see it piloted, particularly as Trick Room is approaching its end. You know, getting that residual damage onto the Hatterene, you might look at the Dragonite and be, you know, looking at its move pool. Dragonite running Roost, Draco Meteor, Extreme Speed, and Fire Spin. You can't go for Extreme Speed because Psychic Terrain was on the field. You can't go for Draco Meteor because it's a Fairy type. So then you're kind of stuck. Well, Roost or Fire Spin, and Fire Spin not known for being a heavy hitter, but the critical thing when combined with the residual damage that Garganacl has thrown down onto that Hatterene as well, means you're going to be able to get the KO regardless. Torkoal going to go for its Terrestrialization into Terra Fire, going to try and get Alex these last turns of Trick Room to be able to get some KOs, because both of our trainers are now down to their last 2 remaining Pokemon.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's an eruption. That's 3 times that spread moves have been clicked. No Wide Guards. No Wide Guards at all coming out here. That's so much damage on the Dragonite. And that's a double spread move in the face of the Wide Guard. That almost KOs the Garganacl and does get the Dragonite. That's incredibly brave of Alex and very risky from Francesco. Could have gone for that Wide Guard.
Yeah, I mean, Alex really doing the high-risk, high-reward strategy here. Salt Cure is going to connect down into that post, and Torkoal does a little bit of damage, but of course Torkoal very, very defensively bulky on the physical side of things. I mean, yes, Hatterene has the issue with the Salt Cure, but the Fire Spin's now gone away because Dragonite has left the field here.
Yeah, absolutely, and it still seems like the Garganacl can do it. It's going to be able to click recovers. The Hatterene has finished its time on the field here. The Salt Cure going to be able to pick up that last little bit of residuals. So that is going to be able to pick up the KO there very, very nicely indeed. The Terrestrial Dimensions have returned to normal, so that means that Garganacl will now be the fastest Pokemon on the field. You can just go for a recover this turn. You can probably Protect to stall out 1 turn of the Sun if you do want to as well. Doesn't really matter at this point. The Garganacl just needs to be able to survive any Earth Powers that could be coming out as well. But Protect makes sense here because you don't want to be taking as strong an Eruption if you are still going for that in the Sun. But it seems like it's still just going to be Earth Power at this point.
I mean, the Tortoise and the Hare taught us that, you know, slow and steady wins the race sometimes, and Torkoal is now facing down against this amazing rock salt monumental Garganacl that's actually able to, you know, be a little bit slower, a little bit steadier than it even, going for these moves and just making sure that you're getting that residual damage and recovering as well. You know, I think that's the one nice thing you get with Garganacl as well, is you have so much flexibility to recover, to be supportive with Wildguard, even though it wasn't clicking it, and then just be able to chip away with Salt Cure.
Yeah, absolutely. So it will just depend how strong this Torkoal is here. Garganacl is very, very bulky. Even on the special side, you can bulk it out very nicely. Here is the recover, so it's going to actually be quite healthy here indeed, and it just depends on how much this Earth Power does to the Garganacl, and it's doing less than the Garganacl's recovering, so it seems like it will be able to take this game. You can just go for a Protect to get some more leftovers, then you can recover again, and then the Salt Cure will just keep going and going. You don't even need to ever attack the Torkoal again with your Salt Cure.
True.
You just need to go Protect, recover, and then there is no downsides. Even the critical hits, maybe some special defense drops could come back for the Torkoal, but you keep buying the turns with the Protect and recovers, and that should be enough for Francesco to take this first game.
That's the thing, like you said, Jamie, you can alternate them. You can go for the Protect, then the Recover, and Francesco really just needs to commit to that now to take out this game 1. Looking ahead towards game 2 potentially, obviously Alex came in very strong, set up that Trick Room nice and early, and then was in quite a dominant position with Armarouge surviving the Power Gem from the opposing Glimmora. How could he maybe adjust going into the next game, or do you think he actually had a solid strategy coming out straight away?
I think one of the key turns would have been the fact that he went for Dazzling Gleam and Psychic with the Armarouge, when he was brave enough to click Dazzling Gleam, and no Wildguard was on the field from the Garganacl, so that was a potential turn to go for Dazzling Gleam and Expanding Force.
Yes.
So then that extra damage onto the Garganacl that didn't happen because he went for Psychic instead would have put it in range of that extra turn of the Dazzling Gleam and the Eruption that came out. But then, of course, we could have switched up our strategy going forward because the Garganacl would have been lower. Maybe Wildguard would have been clicked on that next turn if that was the case. But yeah, the Garganacl still an absolute MVP in this one, even though it could have just gone for Wildguards in the face of all these spread moves that definitely were clicked by Alex, and it just didn't need to. It was still just bulky enough to be able to take the game on its own.
Absolutely amazing. I mean, the issue now coming into game 2, I think Alex kind of sussed out and was brave enough in that game 1 to be like, Francesco's not clicking Wildguard. I'm reading him as a player. He's not going to go for it. But game 2, now Francesco's kind of got the advantage because he could still go for that same strategy that won him game 1, or actually now kind of try and get into Alex's head a little bit and start throwing out those Wildguards, and then suddenly Alex has to adapt.
I think the key thing is that Francesco won despite not clicking Wildguard. And there were multiple opportunities that Wildguard would have been a very good play on that turn, and he didn't need to have done that to be able to win the game. So that does put Alex on the back foot quite a lot here, because he does rely on a lot of those spread moves to be able to just get 2 KOs at once in Trick Room. The Expanding Force with the Eruption, with Dazzling Gleams as well from the Hatterene that was quite effective at dealing some massive damage, like it was able to KO the Dragapult in one shot as well. So yeah, that Garganacl is probably public enemy number 1 for Alex at this point. You do need some way to be able to break through it. The Psychic moves seem to be the best way to break through it, especially just the single target Psychics. A combination of maybe just Hatterene Psychic and Armarouge Psychic might be strong enough to be able to pick up the knockout on the Garganacl. But Garganacl under-speeding Armarouge when it had taken so much damage, putting it in range of Salt Cure whenever Francesco wanted, was very, very nice for him as well.
I mean, we see that a lot as well when you're running a team that doesn't like Trick Room. There's often a Pokemon on there, whether it be an Amoonguss or something like that, that you can have if your opponent gets Trick Room up, that can be really disruptive. And we've seen it before where Amoonguss will come in and will just put things to sleep and, you know, blow through your opponent's Trick Room turns. In this case, on Francesco's side, that Garganacl is going to be able to do the same kind of thing. It can come in, it can go for those Salt Cures by underspeeding things in that Trick Room and just do that residual damage, chip away, go for the Protects, have that Wildguard pressure in there. It doesn't even need to click it, just the pressure alone can be quite formidable, and it does just allow Francesco a little bit more wiggle room to be able to stall through the Trick Room turns that Alex so desperately needs.
Yeah, absolutely, and we didn't even need to see anything like the Gastrodon in that game. That was a Pokemon I assumed would come to this match.
We didn't need to, but did we want to? Yes, we did.
It seemed like it would have been reasonable here, because like Earth Power would do very good damage to the opposing Torkoal, likely underspeed the Armarouge as well and be able to Earth Power that before it attacks. So yeah, interesting to see that was left on the bench, but the other Pokemon that did come to the match were very, very impactful. The Dragapult, necessary to take care of that Follow Me immediately, allowing the damage onto the Armarouge, maybe not a knockout in one shot with the Power Gem, but the Power Gem putting the Armarouge so low that Garganacl could then be the counter to it because it undersped it. So yeah, Francesco does have a lot of tools to be able to deal with this hard Trick Room, it does seem.
Yeah, the Dragapult was short but sweet in that game 1. You know, coming in, getting its Terra Dragon up as well to give extra damage to the Outrage was just what Francesco needed. And look what's coming out from the front. It's the exact same leads that we saw in game 1. Glimmora and Dragapult for Francesco. And on the opposing side, Alex has the Indeedee and the Armarouge as they battle it out to get into the finals.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if we just see exactly the same play. The Dragon Terra Outrage seemed to be very effective here. able to knock out that Indeedee in one shot. Maybe you just go on the offensive with the Indeedee, and if the Dragapult goes for Outrage and ends up targeting the Armor Rouge, maybe that doesn't pick up the KO, and then the Indeedee can get the Trick Room as well. But then you do have to contend with the fact that Power Gem can go into the Armor Rouge as well, so kind of forced to go for Follow Me, because we've already seen that Armor Rouge can survive the Power Gem. It would be able to set the Trick Room if you do click Follow Me, but then you are likely sacrificing your Indeedee once again to the Banded Outrage, and we saw what happened in that first game. It was still able to set the Trick Room, but there just wasn't enough, even with all those spread moves, to be able to break through the team.
Very true. Well, let's see how Game 2 is going to turn out. At the end of the day, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. We're going to see the Terrestrialization coming straight out of the blocks here, and it's going to be coming down onto that Dragapult. So getting its Dragon Terror activated, going to be dealing even more damage with something like that Outrage. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see exactly what you mentioned, Jamie, and just the same plays kind of working through, because getting rid of that Indeedee was so critical. It's going for the Follow Me once again, so it's going to draw all the attention away from the Armor Rouge. There's no doubt setting up that Trick Room as Dragapult does go for the Outrage.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen this knock out the Indeedee in one shot in that first game, and it does seem like it is still going to be strong enough to be able to do that. But then we've still got the Power Gem to be able to go into the Armor Rouge. We've seen that that's able to survive previously, so I wouldn't be surprised if that is going to be the case once again.
Oh, surviving on 12 hit points there. A critical hit could have changed everything, but Armor Rouge able to hang on and get that Trick Room up for Alex. Now, Alex has the utility to bring a Pokemon in from the back, something like that Hatterene. We do see that actually there has been a change up in the 4 and Kingambit's in the back, but I think Hatterene wanting to come in Trick Room, particularly when you're against that Dragon type in the form of Dragapult, you want to be able to go for those Dazzling Gleams, particularly considering there's no Garganacl on the field at this point to threaten those Y-Guards. It's a pretty safe Dazzling Gleam. Yeah,
you would be able to Dazzling Gleam completely freely into that Dragapult. It is a KO or a lot of damage on something that would switch in, but it's not going to be the Hatterene at this point. It is going to be Kingambit. I think Kingambit is a very, very good switch up here. Torkoal didn't seem like it was doing too much at all, and
I agree.
The Kingambit is going to be way more effective against that Garganacl because of the steel typing being able to be super effective with the Iron Heads. You do have to contend with Salt Cure a little bit more because it would do a little bit more residual damage, but yeah, the Kingambit really, really nice adjustment here, especially with something like a Swords Dance.
Oh, let's go. Swords Dance has been clicked on Kingambit. It's going to get a +2 attack boost there as Expanding Force comes out from the Armor Rouge, using the Psychic Terrain to hit both targets, gets the one-hit KO on that opposing Dragapult, takes Glimmora down to its Focus Sash. I mean, you can really see the benefit of the Twisted Spoon item boosting the Psychic type moves on that Armor Rouge as well as the Psychic Terrain. I mean, just big, big damage coming out, utilizing those Trick Room turns the way you need to be able to by getting KOs.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is an Earth Power into the Kingambit, and that's a 2-hit KO. So that's some very, very nice damage into the Kingambit indeed. But really, really nice Sword Stance here. Now the Kingambit is likely to be able to knock out the Garganacl in one shot with its Iron Head. So really, really nice play there. Even if the Garganacl comes in, it's threatening the Soul Cure onto the Kingambit, sure. But that will only do a tiny bit of damage. It will rack up over time because it's a Steel type. But then it won't be able to do the damage to stop the Kingambit from just going for an Iron Head to KO the Garganacl. And then you just be able to follow up with the Psychic into the Glimmora to just be able to pick up that KO because it's only on 1 HP at this point. So Garganacl is going to be able to join the field. It can go for the Salt Cure into the Armor Rouge actually as well, because if it goes for the Salt Cure into the Armor Rouge and Glimmora is not attacked and the Kingambit goes for the Iron Head into the Garganacl, then Glimmora could finish off the Kingambit with that Earth Power. So then you'd be able to just get a double knockout, and then it's Glimmora at its Focus Sash and the Pokemon in the back ready to face the Hatterene at the end. So it will depend on if the Garganacl does go for the Salt Cure into the Armor Rouge, and if the Kingambit does go for the Garganacl instead. Because if it goes for the Garganacl, Glimmora may be free to be able to just do whatever it wants this turn.
I mean, Garganacl, the slowest thing on the field at the moment. It's not like Kingambit can even go for Sucker Punch because the Psychic Terrain is on the field. It is going to terraform into its Dark Terror, however, just going to be able to get extra damage on something like Halton Cleave here, and also change its typing, dropping that Steel variant. Garganacl just going for a Protect, however. Doesn't want to take any unnecessary damage at this point, biding its time for when it might be able to start getting a KO, and Francesco actually playing this turn very defensively, getting the Spiky Shield as well on the Glimmora.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is going to be another turn of Trick Room stored out. There should be 2 more after this one. So being able to just store out a turn, like you could have gone on the offensive there, you could go for Salt Cure and Earth Power, but you can do that whenever you want. You can go for that on the next turn. This double protect, if that would be your strategy, to now go on the offensive, try and take care of the Armor Rouge before the Iron Head would hit the Garganacl, then you could have just done that 1 turn later and stall out 1 more turn of Trick Room. So very, very nice play there, going for the Protect and the Spiky Shield.
Yes, and now, you know, things are shaping up. I mean, dropping that Steel type means that when you get hit by the Salt Cure, you're not going to be taking a quarter of damage, just the 8th damage there. So it does give Kingambit a little bit more breathing room, but it's able to actually go first here, underspeeding the Garganacl, and is able to get that 1-hit KO that you mentioned. The Swords Dance really coming in clutch from being set up earlier on. Armor Rouge able to follow it with the Psychic, and that will be a double knockout for Alex against Francesco.
Yeah, that's absolutely massive that the Kingambit undersped the Garganacl there. Obviously, Kingambit has been trained as slow as possible on this team. Makes perfect sense because you are running a hard Trick Room team. A lot of players, when they are running the Garganackle, don't tend to reduce the speed. They want to be able to just be as neutral as they can and just increase their defenses and don't worry about their speed, because usually Garganackle just sits on the field. Doesn't matter when it's moving, it's just going to Exalt Cure at some point.
True.
But in this case, not making the Garganackle underspeed the opposing Kingambit has really come back to bite Francesco here.
Yeah, and Calton Cleave now going to be connecting into that Dragonite. Not going to be able to get a KO though, thanks to the ability just helping out the Dragonite. But now that it's been broken, expanding force, single target as well, is going to be able to get the KO, forcing a Game 3 here in top 4 at Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely. So really, really nice adjustment coming out from Alex there. Kingambit, a very, very cool addition to this game. Being able to get that Swords Dance was pretty crucial there. I don't think it would have been as impactful if it did not have that Swords Dance, because you can go for an Iron Head into the Garganackle, sure, but then you would not KO it. It needed that Swords Dance to be able to get that one-hit knockout. And the fact that it was able to do that meant that the Armarouge was suddenly free. I assume that Francesco assumed that his Garganackle would be able to go for Salt Cure, stop the Armarouge KO in the Glimmeraura. Here's a double KO because Salt Cure into the Armarouge, Earth Power once again, or even Sludge Bomb because it's got rid of its Steel typing now. Sludge Bomb KO into the Kingambit, and I'm sorted. But the fact that the Kingambit was underspeeding was massive there.
Yeah,
absolutely
that surprised me for sure. I would have, again, when these players have team lists, they don't have access to stats. Is almost everything but. So they wouldn't, that's good information that now, they've got going into this final Game 3. I think the key thing for me was I really like the adjustment from Alex, first of all, dropping Torkoal in favor of Kingambit, and then just being bold enough to go for that Swords Dance very early on, looking towards what the endgame's going to be, and like you've said, identifying that Garganackle was a really big threat in Game 1. So needing a very clean and clear way to be able to remove it by getting that boost up and just taking it down with Iron Head was a really nice strategy, and so expertly piloted. Coming into a Game 3, however, we've seen the same leads from both these players. We've seen the same kind of turn 1 playing out. Again, is there any need to shake it up?
Potentially. That Kingambit is a massive threat now, so you've got to try and find a way to be able to break through that. The Pokemon that were brought from Francesco's side of the field, they were okay at being able to do that. Like the Glimmora can get the Earth Power into the Kingambit when it is still the Steel typing, but that was not quite enough, and it was able to just get that Swords Dance pretty freely. If the same strategy goes forwards, then Alex can still just always get that Trick Room, assuming there's no critical hit from the Power Gem. Then you can just go for a Swords Dance, and then Kingambit can go rampant, knowing that it underspeeds the Garganackle now. Like that is both players know that information for sure now. So then you can both adjust your game plans, knowing that the Kingambit would move first if that were to be the case. But the fact that it's just underspeed really puts the advantage into Alex's favor. Yeah,
the Garganackle's not such a safe Trick Room bet after all. And, what is a safe bet, though, is the leads from these players. All 3 games we've seen the same leads. Indeedee and Armarouge coming out for Alex against the Dragapult and the Glimmora of Francesco. This is the last game in this top 4 set. The winner will be advancing to Grand Finals. The other knocked out the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an argument to be made for Dragapult just going for a U-turn this turn, because then you don't give the switch into the Kingambit. You saw how effective Kingambit in all 4 turns Trick Room with a turn to be free to be able to go for a Swords Dance was. So you could potentially go for a U-turn into the Indeedee this time. It wouldn't be able to pick up the KO, and a U-turn and a Sludge Bomb may be able to get it. Be very close because of the Psychic Seed helping the special defense as well. If you do just go for the Outrage once again, then you've got to hope that the Power Gem is going to be enough this time, because, yeah, it's going to be still a Terastallization, so I think it's quite unlikely there would be a U-turn here. Well, maybe not, given the fact that it is not going to be the Dragapult there. Actually, this could be quite nice. If the Outrage is enough to KO the Indeedee, this Ground-type Terra Earth Power is slightly stronger than the Power Gem.
Yeah, this is going to be strong. We're going to see the Indeedee going for the Follow Me. Dragapult is primed to go for the Outrage. It doesn't have the Terra boost from Dragon Terra, so it's not able to get the KO on that Indeedee. That means Indeedee is going to be able to rake in this Earth Power as well, so it will still be KO'd at the end of the time. But the critical thing is, Alex gets Trick Room up, and the Armarouge has not taken any damage going into that Trick Room.
Yeah, absolutely massive for Alex there. Getting that Trick Room with Armarouge completely healthy is absolutely massive in this game. If that Outrage would have been enough, that Earth Power is just a tiny little bit stronger than the Power Gem would have been without the Terra. So, yeah, that might have been just the extra bit of damage that the Glimmora would have needed to be able to KO that Armarouge. The Indeedee surviving there, absolutely massive. If the Indeedee gets KO'd, it's likely a double KO for Francesco, and then that's almost certainly immediately game. Yes. So, yeah, that is absolutely massive for Alex, because his Armarouge is so healthy now. You do exactly the same thing. Here's the Kingambit. It's likely to be able to go for a Swords Dance, because we've seen that the Twisted Spoon Expanding Force was enough to KO the Dragapult. It is once again locked into Outrage. It cannot switch. So you can very much go for Expanding Force. That's absolutely guaranteed into the Dragapult. And then here is the potential Swords Dance. However, you do have to contend with the fact that the Glimmora is the Ground-type Terra now.
Yes.
Earth Power would do significantly more damage to the Kingambit. We saw it do just above 50%. It's unlikely it would be enough for the one-hit knockout, but it would be incredibly close. You could still just go for the Dark-type Terror that was so effective in that game too as well on this turn, and then you wouldn't be taking as much damage. Or you can just go on the offensive and get a double KO with the Kowtow Cleave and Expanding Force.
Yeah, Kowtow Cleave again being able to do the fastest thing in this Trick Room, able to break the sash on that Glimmora. Expanding Force is going to come out and connect and get, not quite the double KO. Dragon Ball's able to survive. It's kind of trying desperately to redeem itself here, making sure that it's able to hang on. Obviously, we know that it is locked into Outrage, and it's going to find its mark, I believe, down onto the opposing King Gambit there, barely doing any damage at all.
Every bit of damage is going to help, and the fact that Dragapult survived there, that's a very important role. So, yeah, able to KO the Dragapult in one shot in the previous game, but not in this one. Very, very nicely done by the Dragapult. So it's a bit of a shame that Francesco didn't go for a spiky shield that turn, because then the Glimmora was able to survive. Dragapult would have stored out an extra turn of Trick Room just by surviving itself. And then that would be able to put the ball back into Francesco's favor, because then Trick Room is going to be able to be stored out quite nicely. The good thing for Francesco here, though, is King Gambit did not click Swords Dance there.
Yes.
Garganacl should be able to survive an Eye Ahead from the King Gambit. However, the Armourouge being so healthy this time means that you can't just survive the Iron Head, Sulkyo KO the Armourouge anymore. So it would still do some very, very nice damage. You do have to worry about the Wide Guards from Alex's side of the field, because you could just still go for an Expanding Force and get caught with that trap as well. Because if you go for Expanding Force and Iron Head and there's a Wide Guard, Dragapult may not be KO'd this turn unless you do target it, and if you do, Garganacl is still going to be at full HP.
Yes, well, we are going to see the Terror happen on this King Gambit. Going to throw away that Steel type, just keep itself as a Dark type and get the boost as well from the Terror Dark that is now activated. So it's going to be able to deal even more damage with that Kowtow Cleave. It's actually going to go for the Iron Head, however, straight into the Garganacl. You can see that it really, really needed that Sword Stance that it had in the previous game. But against the flinch, who needs to get KOs when you can flinch and stop them moving in the first place? We are going to see the Dragapult be KO'd as well with a cheeky critical hit from the Armourouge. And now the Garganacl in a situation that it does not want to be in, facing down against this King Gambit that outspeeds it in this Trick Room with a very powerful Iron Head.
Yeah, that is quite unfortunate there for Francesco. Any Salt Cure damage would have been very nice. The chipping away at the King Gambit, getting a super effective hit into the Armourouge would have actually chunked it quite nicely, and then it would still get the residual. Here is the Dragonite once again, so it seems like Francesco stuck with the same 4 Pokemon. No Gastrodon once again, so Dragonite going to be able to try and be able to break through these Pokemon. There's still no Sword Dance on the King Gambit. Dragonite would be able to survive somewhat comfortably if they attacked by the King Gambit, but then you'd be able to break the focus, not the focus, actually the multi-scale on the Dragonites quite comfortably with the King Gambit and follow up with a potential Psychic. Wide Guard still has not been clicked this entire game. It is still available. You still have to contend with the fact, do you want to go for Expanding Force, risking a potential Wide Guard that is finally clicked, but if you just go for Psychic, you ignore that completely.
Yeah, honestly, Armourouge is the problem here. It's just got so much flexibility. King Gambit going for the Kowtow Cleave, going to be able to find its mark down onto the opposing Dragonite, break that multi-scale, leaving it more vulnerable to a follow-up attack coming through from the Armourouge. It is going to go for Psychic, though, not falling for the Wide Guard trap, connecting down and doubling into the Dragonite. Not enough to get the KO, though, so Dragonite's able to go for that Fire Spin, connect on King Gambit and start getting up this residual damage. But I just think the absolute offensive powerhouses that are King Gambit with Armourouge are just going to be too much for the Garganacl and the Dragonite at this point.
It does seem like it is going to be. Like, the Fire Spin chip damage is quite nice, and potentially if there was that Salt Cure the previous turn from the Garganacl when it did flinch, the King Gambit might have been KO'd at this point. That might have been actually pretty bad, because then the Hatterene would have joined the field, and that's going to be doing a lot of damage as well. So it's still a very, very nice position for Alex, being able to ignore that Wide Guard completely, break the multi-scale on the Dragonite. It's so low, it's in range of any attack. It can't Extreme Speed, it won't be able to roost here. So you just attack the Dragonite with either of the Pokemon here, and then the other one would be able to target the Garganacl. And Francesco knows it. He's going to forfeit.
Yep.
Alex is going to be our first finalist here in the Liverpool Regionals.
Yeah, the writing was on the wall for Francesco there. Congratulations to Alex Soto, who will be advancing into the grand finals here at the Liverpool Regional Championships. A fantastic match and a wonderful addition to see a hard Trick Room team coming in so strong and being able to get all the way to finals. You cannot write Trick Room off yet. Even as Series 1 is ending, Series 2 is approaching, and that could certainly be a time where players are going to be able to have a refresh look with the induction of the Paradox Pokemon, that Trick Room can be back in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really, really nice showing here. And this is basically the only hard Trick Room team we've seen this tournament, and it is in the final. So it would seem that hard Trick Room is a very, very good play here for this tournament. It just needs to win one more match, and it will be taking home the title here. So yeah, really, really nice showing there from Alex.
Yeah, and I did really like the way Francesco tried to play that, you know, particularly in that Game 3, committing on the Ground Terror on the Glimmora and really trying to get the KO, but just unfortunately the risk of that Outrage was not enough to be able to pick up the KO against the Indeedee. And I think that classic combination where you've got Indeedee setting up the Psychic Terrain paired up with a Psychic Pokemon is still running so strong, even though we're now in, you know, Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet, and it's something that our players do have to work around.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Francesco switching up a strategy of relying on the Outrage to be able to KO the Indeedee, if that had worked, it's an immediate win on turn 1, because Earth Power is likely that tiny bit stronger to be able to KO the Armarouge, and if it does KO, you win. Like, if that is a double KO on that turn 1, Francesco does win that game. So it's entirely reasonable to go for that risk, because Banded Dragapult, it's very strong.
Yeah, you can't get it much stronger.
Can't get it much stronger, but apparently the little bit stronger it needed was that Dragon Terror. That means that Glimmora is never going to be strong enough without the critical hit into the Armarouge to be able to KO it. So, yeah, really unfortunate for Francesco in that game 3. The game 1 plan was really, really nice, being able to stall out that Trick Room, and Garganacl being able to take that end game. I think maybe potentially the White Guards have coming out a few times.
Possibly.
White Guard was clicked once, and then it was two single target moves, so potential for that to be coming into play. But yeah, really, really nice showing for Alex and Francesco here, and a really great semi-final for the first one.
Well, I'm going to write it down that, you know, Gastrodon didn't come, and that's the reason why, you know, things didn't necessarily go Francesco's way. Moral of the story, always bring Gastrodon. But we will be able to have a quick interview with Alex and find out how he's feeling ahead of Grand Final, so don't go anywhere.
Welcome back, Pokemon trainers. I am joined with the first finalist of the 2023 Pokemon Liverpool Regional Championships, Alex Sotto. How are you feeling after that fantastic semi-final?
I'm feeling fantastic. This is so exciting for me. I did another final in another regional. For me, it's incredible, and I hope I can win this tournament. Yeah, I hope so.
We saw you reach the finals back in the Bochum 2020 Regional Championships, and yeah, you are now one step away once again, so very, very close. So Hard Trick Room is still doing very, very good things for you. So how were you feeling after that? In that first game, Garganacl was able to eventually win the game on its own. So how were you feeling about that Garganacl in that first game?
Yeah, that Garganacl was difficult for me because I put Torkoal, and in the second game I noticed that Kingambit would be better, and the result was there, and I didn't know the speed of Garganacl. For me, it was so difficult to know if my Kingambit was have lower speed than their Garganacl, and I noticed that in the second game, and that's give me the victory.
Now, was very important, because if the Garganacl outspeeds first, Solcure KOs Armarouge, and then Kingambit might be KO'd afterwards by the Glimmora. So yeah, really, really nicely trained Kingambit. You have Swords Dance on your Kingambit. A lot of players will opt for Protect instead. Why did you think that Swords Dance was better than Protect on your Kingambit?
In my team, it's, in my opinion, it's better Swords Dance, because my team is so offensive, and in 5 turns in Trick Room, you have to do so much damage you can, you know, and if you use Protect, you're wasting 1 turn in your Trick Room. That's why I put Swords Dance, and some matchups like Garganacl or Grimmsnarl, for example, with Reflect, Swords Dance does great.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was very impactful in that game, because you were able to just one-shot the Garganacl in that game too with the Iron Head, so really, really nice. And we saw very similar strategies. You were going for Follow Me Trick Room on the first turns of every single game, but then Francesco went for something slightly different on that game 3. Instead of the Ground Terror on the Glimmora, if Outrage would have KO'd the Indeedee, that would have been pretty bad. So how were you feeling after that first turn in game 3?
When I saw Glimmora use Terra Crystallizing, I noticed that I will probably win this game, because I know that Dragapult Choice One without Terra Dragon is not able to kill Indeedee, and maybe my opponent thinks so, that he can one hit, but it didn't, and Indeedee survives, and that's why I can set my Trick Room, and I won that.
Yeah, that was absolutely massive, and was very impactful in that game 3 for sure. So very well trained indeed. So you are one more game away from becoming our champion. Yeah. How are you feeling going into this final?
I think I have a good team. I hope I can win that. I'm not pretty sure. The level in this tournament is so high, a lot of participants, but if I'm playing like I'm playing the last rounds, I think I can win the tournament.
You have been playing very, very well so far, and we are just one game away from being able to see if you will be able to take that championship. So we will be cutting to a short break very shortly, and we will be coming back with the second semi-final to see who will be facing Alex Sotto in the finals.